I'm Norman Robinson, and welcome to Affordable Housing Matters. Are short-term rentals jeopardizing the affordable housing market? Breonne DeDecker is here to discuss how this development is affecting the New Orleans area. With the holiday season fast approaching, many may be looking to move into a new home. We will discuss how one needs to plan for this major step with real estate broker Delisha Boyd. Important information on the way, right after this break.
What if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow.
My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Jane Place Neighborhood Sustainability Initiative is a housing and community development nonprofit committed to creating sustainable, democratic, and economically just neighborhoods and communities. Here to tell us how they do this and also discuss the impact that short-term rentals have on this area is Ms. Breonne DeDecker, Program Manager of Jane Place.
Hi, thank you so much.
Welcome, welcome. What is Jane Place?
Jane Place is a community land trust based in Mid-City, New Orleans. We develop permanently affordable housing for low and moderate income families. Community land trusts are a really flexible tool to prevent gentrification and displacement by ensuring that residents can afford to stay in neighborhoods as they improve.
So how do you do that? How do you keep them in the position where they're not being forced out?
Well, how Community Land Trust operates is that the property is held in trust by the nonprofit organization, and we have really strong covenants saying that it'll be very hard for us to ever sell the property. We ensure that the residents in our properties income qualify and are going to, that the units are going to families in need.
So the income qualify, by that you mean what?
That we cannot rent units to anyone making below 80 or above 80% area median income, which is roughly $48,000 for a family of four.
And how successful are you in crafting out areas where you can find these kind of properties for rental?
Yeah, so when we were founded 10 years ago, we thought we had a long period of time to be able to acquire properties at an affordable rate. Mid-City, was a working class neighborhood for a long time. Properties were very affordable. We've seen over the past couple of years, prices have really increased. So we opened the first permanently affordable housing complex almost 2 years ago now. It's a 4-bedroom apartment complex in Mid-City. And we were able to do that using a combination of federal dollars and philanthropic dollars and donations from local residents. And we've continued to sort of use that model moving forward. We've got another 14 units in the pipeline that will be coming online in the next 2 or 3 years. And it's the same approach where we are working with city agencies, we're working with philanthropic organizations, and with residents who want to support our mission to actually raise enough capital to be able to create permanently affordable housing in a neighborhood that's rapidly becoming a higher income neighborhood.
Now, your first complex is in Mid-City, you say?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the other ones will be where?
They're all in Mid-City.
They will all be in Mid-City?
Yeah, so we have a service area. It's a little bit not sort of like the traditional boundaries of Mid-City. It goes from Carrollton Avenue to Claiborne Avenue and Pontchartrain Expressway to Orleans Avenue.
Okay, and how many people can you accommodate?
Right now we only have 4 units online, but again, we're going to be opening up to 14 more units in the next couple of years.
And what is your greatest challenge now?
Our greatest challenges, it does take a lot of money to develop affordable housing. And, we've seen that public monies have been shrinking to support affordable housing. There was a lot of money that came into the city post-Katrina. Some of it was spent well, some of it was not spent so well in regards to affordable housing development and community development. And we're sort of watching that funding dry up.
So who do you look to for that kind of funding? I mean, is it lawmakers or policymakers?
So we do work with, the local Office of Community Development to access home funds, which is federal funds. We've been working with the state to try to access some home funds, which are also federal funds. We've been funded by the Rosemary Foundation, by the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. We've been funded by other small foundations, across the country, and also we have a very robust network of grassroots donations that come in.
When I say challenge, I think short-term rentals.
Oh yeah, that's a big challenge.
I think of affordable housing being diminished by short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Am I?
No, you are definitely not wrong in that. Short-term rentals operate in this very weird space where they are commercializing residential housing in a way that we haven't necessarily seen on the scale that we've seen as it currently is happening. Jane Place, we really started tracking Airbnbs and short-term rentals in New Orleans roughly 3 years ago. So we're sitting on a database of 3 years of data scrapes that were done of Airbnb's sort of user interface. Airbnb as a corporation hides their data very effectively. They're not a public company, so they don't have to share any of their information regarding their users, regarding how often homes are being booked, regarding how many units they have operating in which neighborhoods. So they put out these little fluffy reports that are kind of like, oh, it's not really that bad. And Airbnb is a service that's all about making sure that homeowners that are struggling can rent out a single room in their house in order to make ends meet. But actually, when you start going through the data and looking through the listings, what is revealed is only 13% of listings are people who are operating a single room in their house. 75% of all listings in the city are for whole homes. They're available for 196 nights per year on average. So that's not people who are just renting it out ever so often when they go out of town for the weekend. It's people who are either purchasing or leasing houses explicitly to rent them for tourists. We know that in our database, that there are over 5,000 short-term rentals on Airbnb alone. There are only 3,100 with permits in the city, so we know that there's 2,000 still operating without a permit illegally. And again, the vast majority of them are entire homes, and many of the people who are operating entire homes are folks who are operating more than one. So there are currently 813 users on Airbnb who are operating more than one house. Combined, they cover 2,000 listings. So over half the listings are people who are renting out more than one entire house. And there's 198 users who are renting out more than 4 houses. So again, these are people who are gobbling up our housing stock. The number one operator in the city is actually a company based out of Spokane, Washington, that has 141 units listed.
So this is a company.
Yeah, you can look them up.
Someplace
else.
Else.
They're called Stay Alfred. You can just look them up. There's a lot of business articles. They do this all over the country. It's not just New Orleans. A lot of cities are facing this challenge right now, where there are people who have access to capital and have no moral qualms about removing housing stock off of markets that are really struggling to connect residents to affordable housing and diverting those housing units towards tourists.
So then this is a lot greater, or this is more widespread than what we've been led to believe.
Oh, definitely. And I think part of the problem has been the data challenge. Because Airbnb hides all of its information, I don't think a lot of policymakers in the city had access to accurate information, and they were lobbied very, very hard by the Alliance for Neighborhood Prosperity, which is a group composed of short-term rental operators who have a lot of capital, who are able to lobby, effectively. Airbnb, the corporation, had a hand in writing the legislation that was actually passed by City Council. I think it was a very inequitable playing field in regards to how the regulations were actually crafted.
So what is all this doing to people who are looking for affordable housing?
Well, I think it's inflating our housing market in a way that is it's creating a decoupling of the housing market from residents who actually live here. If you are interested in commercializing a property and renting it out for $250 a night, you're able to budget for a much more expensive unit of housing, and you're willing to pay more than the person who just wants to live in it or who wants to rent it out to a family member or a friend. It's pumping in capital that is not existent in the city. One thing that we know is that, housing prices have raised, 40% in some neighborhoods. In the Bywater, I know between 2010 and 2015, rents rose actually over 100% if you look at the city's data.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, and incomes have only raised 2%. So we know that we're not getting wealthier as a city, but we're watching our property values skyrocket in a lot of these neighborhoods that are desirable to people who have money, who are coming in from outside, who want to then monetize the house and rent it out to other people from outside with money.
In which neighborhoods are these Airbnbs most prevalent?
So there's this perception that this is a problem that's primarily happening in the Marigny and in the Bywater and the French Quarter. But the number one neighborhood is actually the CBD. There's been a huge influx of condo developments and apartment developments in the CBD. We actually did an investigation recently and found in that one apartment building, the Maritime, over 50% of units in that apartment building are short-term rentals at this point. So it was I think it was 55 units in like a 105-unit building were actually full-time short-term rentals. After the CBD, it's Central City. And after Central City, it's the 7th Ward. So at this point, it's not just these sort of neighborhoods that we've thought as being already lost to gentrification or really suffering, this huge influx of capital. It's now moving into Black working class neighborhoods, and it's moving into those neighborhoods because those housing units are a little bit more affordable for flippers to come in and monetize those houses. And it's also so close to the vibrant culture that we like to give to our tourists and like that tourists want to experience. I have a very strong memory of one of the debates when we were talking about the legalization, where there was a man, a white man, who was bragging about buying a house in Central City, evicting the Section 8 tenants, rehabbing it, and he was like, well, now tourists have a nice place to come stay and take pictures of Mardi Gras Indians. And it's like, is this how we want our housing to be utilized? Do we want to evict our community members in order to make space for residents to come gawk at us?
Well, what he doesn't understand is that the Section 8 renters that he evicted might be some Mardi Gras Indians.
Exactly.
And they might not be there to
Right.
have their pictures taken.
Right, and I think one of the things that I love about New Orleans is that the culture is so participatory. It's not just about the person who plays the music, it's also about the person who lives next door and cooks the food, right? It's like a very, very strong mix of residents coming together and enjoying and supporting one another. And once you start chipping away at the fabric of our neighborhoods, that's when you start really seeing a loss of this community resiliency that we like to take pride in.
All right. Ms. DeDecker.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
And bringing us some information that gives us new insight into what Airbnb is all about.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it's never too soon to start planning to become a homeowner. Right after this break, we will speak with a local realtor to find out how she can make your dream of owning a home a reality. You're watching Affordable Housing Matters right here on WLAE.
Thanks to your generosity, Marines have delivered Christmas to children in need since 1947.
When starting the process of owning a home, it is easy to find oneself overwhelmed and even sometimes confused. With me now is Ms. Delisha Boyd of Delisha Boyd, LLC, and she is here to guide us on our way to home ownership and also shed some light on the housing market in our area. Ms. Boyd?
Good morning. Good evening. Sorry.
Good evening.
I'm starting my day over. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
You're
Yeah.
looking fabulous, if I might be permitted to say so. So, what is the first step to owning a home?
Finding out what your comfort level will be, which means your affordability for a home. Your debt to income ratio, getting pre-qualified with a lender would be the first step. And that is an important first step because there's so many myths about purchasing homes. Most first-time home buyers think they need scores in 700, 800s. That's not so. FHA has a program for 580.
Really?
A medium score of 580 can get you into a home, not an elevated interest rate with the same affordable interest rate that everyone else has on a 30-year fixed mortgage. It's in everyone's grasp. Just make the first phone call.
Make the first phone call?
Make the first
So what are
phone
we
call.
looking at when we talk about down payments?
3.5% down payment. That's it. And right now, the city, the state has so many different programs to assist the first-time home buyer. The state has a bond program which would pay that 3.5% for you. The city of New Orleans, Fano, has a down payment or closing cost assistance. The things that will assist them, it's actually almost cheaper to buy, not almost, it is. It's cheaper to own a home, especially in Orleans Parish, than it is to rent a home. You go into a rental, you have to pay your first month's rent, sometimes first and last and deposit. You're buying a house with a first-time buyers program, you may go in with maybe $500, $1,500 max.
Really?
Yes. With the assistance that's available, it's here. Pick up the phone and ask. Call. You can call me.
Well, because I often hear people who are frustrated by the idea of the rents going up.
Yes.
And then they are really petrified when it comes to the idea of coming up with the funds to own a house.
Right.
So then how does one navigate this bureaucracy of information overload?
Well, one, I would encourage everyone to stop watching the reality shows on TV because that's just what it is, a TV show that's edited out what the important process would be. Neighborhood Housing Services on Ferret Street has an awesome first-time home buyers program to educate you. You're more than welcome to call my office. We have 35 agents to assist you with that first step. And just seek information. Knowledge is power. Jefferson Parish just introduced a $40,000 grant to first-time home buyers. $40,000.
$40,000.
$40,000 to assist you. It serves as what they call like a gap grant. So if you're approved for $100,000, Jefferson Parish, if you get qualified for this program, we'll give you an additional $40,000. That brings you into a whole different neighborhood.
So how do you get qualified for a program like that?
Once again, it starts with the lender. It is income driven and credit score driven. That particular program does require you to have a 620 medium score. And keep in mind that, okay, you may not want to live permanently in Jefferson Parish, but you're buying your first home, not your last home. Let that be the first property in your portfolio. Because technically that means you're moving into a property with already equity of $40,000. Because you understand it's not attached to your bottom line. It's a grant that's forgivable after 10 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, I hear you, and I'm encouraged
Yes.
by what you're saying.
Yes.
But it seems to me when it comes to actually executing some of these things,
Right.
that people they're either shut out by either lack of knowledge, or they're shut out by the news that they're hearing concerning the runaway rents and the runaway pricing of housing.
It's very alive and well. Once again, especially in Orleans Parish, we have so many neighborhoods that are going through gentrification. And I've said a million times the difference between gentrification and revitalization is who's buying the home. So buy in your neighborhood. When you see there's lots of activity, when the city is working on streets and they're opening up new schools and new restaurants on Oak Street or whatever, that's the time for you to then take interest in that. And it's okay to buy in your neighborhood, because if you buy in your neighborhood and you rehab that particular property in 3 to 5 years, it'll have a ton of equity. Look what happened in the New Marigny, the Ninth Ward. It's really the Ninth Ward, but we've renamed it.
We've renamed it.
We've renamed
because
it
it's more marketable.
Because it's more marketable
Okay.
as the New Marigny, you know. But once again, in 2007, when the talk of the streetcar was going up St. Claude, everybody should have been buying anything around St. Claude at that time, because now that particular neighborhood houses are $500,000 and $600,000 for small houses. I'm talking 1,650 square feet, not mansions.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I know. It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It is really insane. But then be a part of that. You know, how many people who have grandparents and elderly aunts that have lived in these now historic areas, because now that's an historic area, and no one is taking care of the property. No one is paying the taxes on the property. Be involved in your own neighborhood. You'd be surprised at what gems you can find that way. And then it becomes more affordable. And there are programs to help first-time home buyers even do rehabs. FHA has a product for that as well. It's called a 203K mortgage. And you can borrow up to almost $100,000 with that for a rehab property with the same 3.5% down payment. So things are not as difficult as people make them out to be. You know, there's an avenue for everything. If your credit is not that great, hard money lending might be a way for someone to get their feet wet if it's a quick project. The wholesale market, also a great way. But again, for me, my personal opinion, buy in your neighborhood. Holly Grove right now is growing out of control. And they've already renamed it. Near Oak Street is called West Carrollton now. No longer Pigeon Town, it's West Carrollton. You know, but they're going to reopen the old Priestley High School this coming school year.
So that's going to be a new paradigm.
French school that's going to be now a focal point of that neighborhood. On Leonidas Street, Oak Street, 2-3 blocks down, is flourishing. New cafes, new coffee shops. There's a little bookstore now. You know, that is when you take notice. When the city is bringing money, economical value to a neighborhood again, everybody should take notice then.
Well, what about the argument you hear so often from people who have been living in these neighborhoods for so long? Well, they're coming in and they're forcing us out and they're buying us out, and that's not right. They're taking advantage of us because we
I hear it all the time.
We are income challenged, and we don't have the kind of resources that, quote unquote, they have. What do you say to people?
We live in 2017. Information can be found anywhere. Computers, if you don't own one, I'm sure one of your grandchildren and nieces does. But also, you're living in a neighborhood and you're watching the activity take place around you. So if someone calls you to buy Mama's house for $25,000 because nobody's paying the taxes, you know, the city has cited it because it's an eyesore, the grass is overgrown, so you have liens or whatever, and you're not taking care of it, but you or your grandmother or your aunt or whoever agrees to take the $30,000, that's not really somebody taking advantage of you. That's somebody making a business move. So I encourage them same people, get involved. If it's 10 grandchildren, all y'all get involved with it. You know, you paint the house, you cut the trees, you keep the grass cut. And there are programs available out there to help you rehab houses. They're there. The Habitat of Humanity actually donates a lot of stuff.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, they actually. it's a great avenue for investors. It's a better avenue for even people who are first-time home buyers even. Things are donated to them, and they donate back to the community. They will. You have to get on a list for it, but it is there and it's available to you. Call, ask questions. Nothing beats a failure but a change.
So I hear you saying that as opposed to this opposition to this term called gentrification, you can get involved in revitalization.
Right. So you're not afraid to walk in your own neighborhood. You know, you can't really complain at the fact that there are no more crack houses in your block, because now you should feel safer walking from your car to your front door. You know, we live in a city right now where crime is insane. It really is. It's out of control. You know, earlier this week, Darren Lombard's sister was murdered.
Yeah, no, that's my
On
ex,
her front-
my ex-cousin-in-law. Yes.
Really? On her front lawn.
Yes.
You know,
it was very disturbing.
It's very, very disturbing. So you should want to help revitalize your neighborhood, where if you're not living in the neighborhood, how about this? Your aunt that still lives there, or your grandmother that still lives there, is now able to walk freely the neighborhood. She can walk to Oak Street, you know, and have some coffee in the morning and not feel afraid. Get involved. Take over your own neighborhood.
Yeah,
then.
I like that idea, take over your own neighborhood. And for people who might be inclined to take over their own neighborhood, give me a list of those options again as far as investors are concerned and the types of lending programs for revitalization.
One, let me say this. On November 18th, in my office, we're actually doing an investors workshop. We will have lenders available to talk about the different programs that are available. We're going to have a hard lender there to give that option as well. We're going to give you all the do's and don'ts. We're going to kill the myths that are out there, whether you're interested in buying doubles and having rentals or buying homes and flipping them out. All of that's going to be available at my office November 18th from 9 to 12 o'clock. But there are rehabbing programs. FHA has what I consider an affordable rehabbing program, 3.5%. Most construction loans are 20% to 30% down payment. FHA has a program that's only 3.5% down. You know, so and sometimes if you're serious about reclaiming your own neighborhood, it may take more than one person on a project. It may take 3 or 4 of you to form an LLC. And how about this? I'm a notary. I'll do it for you.
So you can actually show them how that's done.
I can show them how it's done, and for the purpose of rehabbing their own neighborhood, I'll create the LLC for free. That's how passionate I am about people reclaiming their own neighborhood and getting involved with what I sincerely believe can be the beginning of generational wealth. I do. You know, if you're buying low and rehabbing your own property, in 2 or 3 years you may be able to sell it at a higher rate, provided that we don't get wiped out by another hurricane or something. You know, start it. Start the generational wealth within your own family.
And that starts with home ownership, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Get the first property, and I say this to young people all the time, and I'm young, by the way, but younger people. I say this all the time. You know, you're buying your first property. I'm not telling you to buy it. Our generation, we don't live in one house for 50 and 60 years like our grandparents did. So you're buying your first property, which could be the first property in your portfolio. Right. Then you move on to the second one.
All right. Give me a quick number for people who might hear this interview and want to call you.
Okay, 504-533-8701, or you can go to my website, www.delishaboyd.com.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
You're a wealth of information.
Thank you.
It's been encouraging talking to you.
Yes.
All right.
Always a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We would also like to again thank Ms. Breonne DeDecker for joining us on Affordable Housing Matters. If you would like to rewatch this and other episodes of Affordable Housing Matters, go to WLAE.com and click on the programming link. There you can rewatch this episode and all past episodes of Affordable Housing Matters. Thank you for joining us. I'm Norman Robinson. Have a good night.